In today's episode of the Film Mandate, we'll be talking about how amazingly a film from Africa is making big waves in the Hollywood box office. Yes, I'm talking about Hollywood box office. And when you see this film, you might even think it is made in Hollywood, but no, it is made on this continent, specifically South Africa. And do you know what that film is? Well, let me tell you, it is David, the movie, and it's beating some Hollywood movies to the dollar, except for Avatar Fire and Ash, which indeed is a juggernaut of a movie. James Cameron's movies are always that way. So apart from that, yeah, it made quite a splash this weekend in the cinema. So we'll be talking about that, and also it looks like Asia is bent on taking over the world in terms of cinema, and already we are seeing glimpses of what Asia would look. I mean, films from Asia will look like when they go all out in making that happen, and it looks like that is what they are doing. They are thinking transnational rather than just individual nations producing their films and putting it out there. So at a Hong Kong financing forum, that was the intention. And in the year 2026, they listed a number of films that they will be releasing that are in development. So it's quite interesting, and we'll be taking a look at that one as well. And the big question is that why are we not going to the movies? That is the big question. Every year we keep asking ourselves, is it as a result of expensive ticketing, or could there be more reasons to it than usual? This is actually a research done in India, and we'll be taking a look at that story as well. So these are the three major stories for today's episode of the Film Mandate. And as usual, I'll bring in you stories from all these continents from all over the world. So stay tuned. My name is Papa Otu, and we'll be talking more about all these stories and other exciting box office results. My name is Papa Otu. Again, stay tuned for this episode. Hello and welcome once again to another exciting episode of the Film Mandate, where I bring to you movie news, reviews, and reactions, both from the African front and the international scene. And that is exactly what we have for you, considering all the stories that we're going to talk about today. So, in our very first story, faith-based studio in America, the Angel Studios, which brought to you Freedom, Sound of Freedom, starring Jim Caviezel, and brought other faith-based movie. Indeed, has made the biggest box office presence ever in the film David, which actually released in December of last year. It released in December of last year, and already it is making, going head to head. I mean, even beating them, not just head to head, but beating films like SpongeBob, the SquarePants. I mean, the Search for SquarePants, and it is quite amazing. I mean, SquarePants is actually such a big movie. I remember when the other one was released earlier, like a couple of, I think that was even pre-pandemic. It made quite a splash at the box office. So you would assume that it would easily take, over the box office when it comes to films that are quite family oriented um, in that space. And more so being a faith-based movie, sometimes we don't even, I mean, from what has transpired in the past, faith-based movie don't really perform so well compared to other genre of movies, due to perhaps the demographics and other factors that may lead to why that is not performing. But David, the musical, is making such a splendid splash on the international scene, and I thought it a worthy story to report on, or to talk about and have a discussion on it for this episode. So definitely, I'm excited for South Africa and Africa as a whole for this movie being done, and kudos to Angel Studio seeing the vision, seeing this project, and taking it on and distributing it into the American markets. And you will be surprised when I highlight how successful it's been, in the sense that It's not just released internationally; it's only released in the Hollywood market. So, can you imagine when it finally releases in the international market as a whole? It's going to be a juggernaut of a faith-based movie, and that is quite interesting to see. So, quickly, let me just read the article published on it that talks about how this South African film, it is not a Hollywood film. It's a South African film breaking records all over the world. Let's take a quick, I mean, in the US. So this is what it says. My broadband trusted in tech uh, news portal or website says that South African film breaks box office record and beats new SpongeBob movie in the US. And it goes on to say that South African animated musical David grossed $22 million at the US box office in its opening weekend, beating the SpongeBob movie Search for SquarePants for second place overall. The biblical animation was produced by Angel Studios and directed by Zimbabwe born South Africans Phil Cunningham and Brent Dawes at Cape Town based Sunrise Animation Studios. In an upset of David versus Goliath proportions, I like what he did there. Their biblical animation outperformed both the SpongeBob movie Search for SquarePants and The Housemaid in North America, the group said. The only movie that performed better on the weekend in the US was James Cameron's Avatar Fire and Ash, which released on the same day. This is the biggest 3 day opening in Angel Studios history, surpassing even Sound of Freedom, which went on to gross over $250 million globally, the studio said. It is also the highest grossing opening weekend ever in the US for a faith based animated film. That is quite something, because looking at the films they will mention here, The King of Kings and the Oscar winning The Prince of Egypt. One, I think The Prince of Egypt is maybe closely behind, if not the number one for me, the best 2D animated film I've ever watched. Perhaps behind. Maybe I need to sit down and think more about it. But that is one of my favorite among the top 10 2D animated films. The Prince of Egypt is part of it, and then The Princess and the Frog. Yeah, the Disney animated film is also part of it. Anyway, let me just go on further. So, furthermore, it's achieved the best opening for a South African film in North America since Neil Blomkamp's sci-fi hit District 9, which was released in 2009. Like District 9, David's gross is also expected to be far greater than its budget. In its first 4 weeks in theaters, it grossed over $75 million. That is huge. That is really huge. I don't really know the budget, but I'll check it out as well. So it goes on to say that this puts the film at number 35 on Box Office Mojo's roundup of the highest grossing films in 2025 in American cinemas and inside the top 10 for animation films, even before it completes its run, the studio said. The movie's cast includes Grammy nominee Phil Wickham in the lead as adult David, singing a score composed by the greatest showman's Joseph Trapanis. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Pardon me if I'm not. In addition to cinemas in North America and South Africa, Angel Studios plans to release the movie in 44 international markets by 1st January 2027. So that is quite far away off. And well, I hope they can even, I mean, if possible, they should even release it in Easter, in the Easter season. And I think that perhaps may go a long way. But I think in the Easter season, it might be competing with Mel Gibson's The Resurrection of the Christ. So, well, I don't know what the reasons may be for them deciding to wait till 1st January 2027. So there may be a very tangible reason for such a release schedule. But there you have it. David indeed is quite an interesting film to watch. I mean, I'm yet to actually go into the cinemas to watch it, but the whole idea of you know faith-based movies not performing or outperforming their counterparts from other genres or a generic secular film, it looks like this has proven to be otherwise. And Mel Gibson's film also proved otherwise, which not only happened to be a faith-based movie, but also happened to be in I think prior to Deadpool and Wolverine, it happened to be the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. And not just that, but also a faith-based film. So it is possible for faith-based film to make a big splash at the box office, provided it is a good story that have been, I mean, it's been told well and properly marketed, provided there are no other conditions that will prevent the demographics that it is targeting to go to the cinemas to watch. And it looks like David has proven to be the exception, particularly in the times we find ourselves in. And I'm excited for David, and I think perhaps the approach might have contributed to its success. But what is interesting about this entire, this film in particular, is not just the fact that it is a musical and all that. Yes, that shows the hard work that they've been putting into it. But the exciting thing about it is the fact that he spent 10 years in getting this movie done. They spent 10 years. That is Sunrise Productions animation studio spent this much time in getting it done. And not just that, but they worked with a number of, you know, crew members from all over the world just to get it done right. And from those who have watched the movie in its entirety, particularly in the cinemas, have described how detailed of a production it is. The images, the frame, the shots, and everything that it captured is very detailed and a very good work done. And definitely, if you're going to use box office results as a true measure or as one of the yardstick to measure the success of a film, then perhaps this box office is proven to be the perhaps the right barometer for that purpose, and that is quite an exciting thing for me. Yes, I may be biased, but for me as an African, that this film is performing very well at the box office, and it is it is exciting to hear. It is exciting to hear, and it looks like in recent times, just recently, another a Nigerian film, Two at That, became the highest grossing film in West Africa, even against some of the Hollywood films that released in Africa. Even if we are to just zone into Nigeria alone, it became the you know the first and fourth highest grossing films of all time in West Africa. It beating, I think, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and I think Black Panther itself. It dominated the box office, and I'm talking about two films that was released quite recently over the December holiday. So one way or the other, there seems to be a renaissance of a sort as to how African films perhaps are perceived globally or even locally. So indeed, if we put, we play our cards well, making sure that everything is in order, we ensure that the value for production value for every film we do, it's on par with the films from the West that we so much love and watch, even locally, then we have a chance to make such hits globally. But one of the things that perhaps may be hindering us not making such impactful global box office success is the fact that even in our own markets, we do not have enough network of cinemas to help distribute the films locally. So, and those are things that most distribution companies would even want to pay attention to, even streamers. They pay attention to what your own market is offering, even for them to consider distributing our films sometimes. And that has been quite a drawback to how African films could have performed on the markets given the opportunity. But certain markets in Africa are still doing quite well. We are talking about the markets of South Africa, Nigeria. I think Kenya is not so bad. And Egypt, of course, Egypt is also a different terrain altogether. But these are markets that are doing quite well, but I keep saying that it is still not the best of opportunities that we can create for ourselves, not wait for our films to be showcased in markets in the States. But regardless, David as a film, it's an example of a film from Africa that, when a movie is done well, and it gets the necessary leverage of distribution, it can make an impact. And this is what David, a South African film made over a period of 10 years, have been able to achieve $75 million in just the first 4 weeks. In just the first 4 weeks. And if you take a look at the box office receipt, majority, about 90, it makes the $75 or so, $75 million makes up about 90 something percent of just US distribution alone. I think 97 or 98 or thereabouts. They are yet to release international waters or international territory. So that is what we are waiting, but it looks like it's going to be far, far ways off. And I don't know why they are choosing first. Maybe they think first is the best, or January is the best time to release it. But I think that perhaps, if they reconsider their terms, releasing it during the Easter holidays wouldn't be a bad thing, since it will be quite close to the this release window that this particular film finds itself in, and also considering that the hype of it, the the rave is causing, may go a long way to impact it positively if it's released quite closer to what is happening in America. But maybe they may want to release it and boost it freshly as if it's a new film, and maybe that may pay off. So regardless, it looks like it has worked well, and I'm hoping it even does better. And with that, indeed, I'm excited about that, and we are looking forward to more faith-based film being made, animation, and mostly also from Africa as well. And that is one thing I'm excited about. So, what do you think David connected so powerfully with the audience? Do you think it's a matter of the music, the animation, or whatever? Maybe is it story, animation quality, or perfect timing? Regardless, well, what do you think may have contributed wholly to this tremendous success that Angel Studios and Sunrise Productions have been able to achieve? Whatever your thoughts may be, can you leave it in the comment section below? And talking about making an impact worldwide, well, not only are we hoping to do that from Africa, but other continents, other regions of the world are thinking the same way we are. Well, if not the entire continent, for me, one of the passionate desires I've ever had is to see Africa have a transnational territory where our industries are united in churning out quality films that can compete globally on the film market. And it looks like that is exactly what the Asian market is doing. And I'm talking about the Hong Kong market. And they are considering the unity of their industry to push films. And just as I said, the impact already is being felt. Haven't for the past couple of years, we've been seeing films from Asia trickling into Hollywood in particular, where they are making big waves, not just sometimes in the box office, receipt or chart, but also doing major awards events like the Oscars. A couple of years ago, we had Parasite. This year, we're going to have No Other Choice, and not just No Other Choice, also K-pop Demon Hunter. We also have what's it called, the Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle. I've forgotten the other name, but these are films that are making impact globally, and all these films come from Asia. Yes, it might have been a co-production effort, or even produced entirely in Hollywood, but still with an Asian story in mind. That speaks to how powerful Asia stories are becoming nowadays. And indeed, it is because it is an intentional effort to get that done. And publishing the Hollywood Reporter, this is what this article says: that Film Art Hong Kong's HAF unveils first batch of in-development projects, the first selection of Asian projects from the influential Asia Film Financing Forum's 2026 edition includes dramas backed by filmmakers Stanley Kwan and Anthony Chen. So let's take a quick read as to what this article has for it. So it goes on to say that Hong Kong's Asia Film Financing Forum (HAF) has unveiled the first 17 in development projects selected for its 24th edition, offering an early snapshot of the stories and talent set to converge as one of Asia's most closely watched film financing markets. The initial lineup spans a wide range of genres, from comedy and fantasy to suspense and romance, and reflects the forum's long-standing emphasis on pairing emerging directors with established industry mentors. Among the prominent filmmakers attached to the selected project as producers are Hong Kong author Stanley Kwan, Singaporean filmmaker Anthony Chen, and Japanese industry veteran Shina Yasushi, the longtime head of Tokyo's TEFCON market. So it goes on to explain how a number of 414 submissions were submitted, and this particular project will be running from March 17 to 19. And let me just name the countries these projects are from to show how serious they are as a region in making sure that their films become a global phenomenon, signs of which we are already seeing. So it goes on to say that submissions came from, let me just highlight that portion so you get to know exactly what I'm talking about. So submissions came from across East, Southeast, and South Asia, including Bangladesh, Cambodia, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Japan, Kazakhstan, mainland China, Malaysia, Mongolia, Nepal, Pakistan, the Philippines, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, and Vietnam. And these come from 38 countries. 38 countries. I don't know which, yeah, but mostly from the Asian regions. And that is quite interesting. I think a little bit of the European region as well. I think, yeah. So it is indeed quite an amazing feat that they are embarking on. And some of the, let me just perhaps name some of the a few of the development projects that is coming up. Honestly, I'm not familiar with any of them, I must admit, but it is interesting to see. So we have director Sasha Chuk and producer Stanley Kwan working on a drama revolving around two masseuses and a construction worker as they reshape their futures while moving between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. The next one is by Vinci Chuk. Producer is Koga Shunsuke, an intergenerational comedy about a 38-year-old woman's unexpected connection with her 83-year-old grandmother during an unavoidable trip. A Drop in the Sea, Shayo Bayer, produced by Zhan Fan, an entrepreneurial Chinese woman travels to Algeria for her brother's janaza, uncovering an unknown chapter of his life. So there are several stories, Fishes of Men. So these other ones are 131. The titles are 131, 38, 83, and we have other titles like Fishes of Men, Forgetting She Is She. That's an interesting title. Funeral Flowers, and Have a Good Trip. I think there are some more down there. So I'll leave the link in the description below if you want to take a look at the entirety of the list of films, all the roster of films that they are bringing aboard. But the whole strategy indeed points to a fact that they've seen the power of what Unity can do. Listen, one of the things we cannot take away from the perhaps the American market and now China is the fact that they have quite a large economy that can sustain those industries even without bothering to rely on the entirety of the world. But we live in a global village now where we've seen that intercontinental distribution of films is the way to go. But before you embark on those ones, it is best to make sure that what you are doing continentally is working well before you can even think about expanding it to other regions. Yes, you can expand it to other regions, looking at the fact that it's a global village. And an example is that of the Angel Studios one, where the film was made in Africa, but their producer, their co-producing company is or partner, Angel Studios, have taken the film to America to air there, and it's become a phenomenal success. But one of the things that traditionally, if you really want to get people paying serious attention to your industry, is a territorial, successful film market. And that is something that, particularly in Africa, we don't have, but in Asia, there are pockets of it that is successful. But indeed, it is not as successful as how America have been able to have their markets being that successful, and also comparatively China doing same. So to have a continental transnational industry ongoing is the best way to go. Something that I've been an advocate for our local African market. And from where I come from, Ghana in particular, we don't even have enough cinemas, let alone talk about making box office hits in such a wave that may draw the attention of investors and film distributors worldwide. And the only way we can get that done is a transnational continental market like what the Asian region are doing. And I applaud them for that. And listen, one of the things we cannot take away from the Asia is how interesting their stories are permeating the American market for years. Talk about Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon. Those movies came decades ago. Jackie Chan going to that market, Bruce Lee. So Asia has had a footprint in the biggest film industry ever for so long. And indeed, it points to how powerful their stories are. And I'm glad that they've seen the wisdom in bonding together and creating such a market. Yes, this starts with the in development projects of films, but obviously the next point of call would be uniting those markets very firmly so that film from whatever country that may be would have an equal opportunity across all the regions. And this story is even quite crucial, or this angle that I'm bringing in is quite crucial to the next topic I'll be talking about. Seeing that even in India, the next topic I'll be talking about is how India is seeing a drop in the cinema attendance, something that have been talked about in the US film market itself, a market that you would assume that they would always have an easy ride. Well, it is no fault. I mean, there are other aspects of it that becomes the fault of the industry stakeholders as a whole, but mainly the bigger chunk of the problem it has to do with the impact of COVID and so much more. So we'll be delving into that story. But transnational film distribution strategy is the way to go, and Asia, which is already doing quite well, far better than what Africans we have here, are even seeing the need for a transnational cooperative film market. And if they are doing that, how much more for us Africans? Anyway, I'm still digressing, but that shows how passionate I am about my film industry in Africa. But I like what they are doing and seeing what they've been able to do. That is, Asia have been able to do so far. This year alone, the number of films that have made impact worldwide from No Other Choice, which is a movie potentially has the chance of winning the best um, international language feature category of the Oscars. And perhaps if it was even given a chance, it might have even won the best picture if there need be. But regardless, it is indeed an indication that they've been intentional about what they are doing so far. K-pop Demon Hunter, is it K-pop Demon? Yeah, K-pop Demon Hunters, which was released just over a weekend, made quite an impact. Yes, maybe the reason might have been as a result of the streaming release becoming a platform to push the attention for the film itself. So it could be that reason. But regardless, it shows how people are yearning for content outside the traditional Hollywood market. So, and China or like the Asian region have been the place where a lot of these films come from, particularly Korea. And Indian films are also not left out, from the RR House making a big splash during one of the Oscar ceremonies with one of the musical hits. You can name a number of projects from each region, or perhaps most of the countries listed in this article, making such an impact in the North American market. So hey, kudos to them for seeing the wisdom in uniting their markets and fortifying it. And I think at this rate, if they keep on doing the right thing with time, there's 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 not going to be any doubt that they are going to be the leading market when it comes to film in the world. That is comparatively combining China and all the Asian regions, they're going to be the leading market in the world. So it is something worth considering. And Africa being the second most populous continent in the world, it is something that we can learn from. Anyway, let me just bring this story to an end. Let me know what you think about this story. Um, what do you think attributes to the necessity for the Asian region to unite, their markets and produce these films that they are churning out? Do you think is the way to go? And what lessons do you think industries all over, our continents all over, can learn from what these Hong Kong annual film festival, film marts are embarking on? Whatever your thoughts may be, can you leave it in the comment section below? And then we move on to our last story of the day. And just as I've already given a preamble to it, the question here has always been, why are we not going to the movies? Why are we not going to the movies? And these are questions that we keep asking ourselves, regardless of. It's a question that from time to time we keep asking ourselves. Even last year, those were the questions being raised in the Hollywood film industry as well as after the pandemic. I think the highest time when the box office was really high was somewhere 2017, if I'm not mistaken, 2017 or 2019, prior to the pandemic. And afterwards, the box office returns have never been the same. Yes, it's picking up, and it's being projected that the box office will fully return to its former glory around 2029, which is, I think, about 3 years from now. So, what indeed could be the reason why moviegoers are not going to the cinemas like before? And in the Indian region, you have the Indian people doing their research to uh, support such uh, findings. So let's quickly take a look at their story for today. Yeah, so pardon me for the little technical button I clicked on. So quickly, we move to the story for the day, which is captured in the Times of India. Yeah, pardon me, I clicked on this again. So yeah, so it goes on to say that why are moviegoers staying home? Why are people not going to the movies? Tickets are expensive, comes the prompt reply if you ask almost anyone, be it a moviegoer or someone from the film industry. Add to that the easy availability of films on streaming platforms, the average moviegoer directors feel increasingly finds oneself priced out and left behind. But this disconnect is not only the reason why films are struggling to get audiences in theaters. So this is where the findings comes in. The Multiplex Association of India, MAI, the apex body representing multiplex exhibitors nationwide, has released a comprehensive report titled The Story of Film Exhibition in India, prepared by Ernst and Young, highlighting the economic contribution and policy imperatives of India's film exhibition sector. According to the report, which examines moviegoers' going patterns between 2019 and 2024, over 80% of moviegoers still want to watch films in theaters, but more than 50% say the biggest issue is the quality of movies being made. As per the report, and industry, pardon me, and industry insiders, the problem is not a lack of movies, it is a steady erosion of movie going as a habit, driven largely by audiences losing faith in what is being offered on the big screen. And I think this article is very insightful considering the fact that truly, 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 if you take a look at a number of films that were released last year to, other years right after the pandemic, a number of them have not really been good. I mean, comparatively to other markets, perhaps it's still very superior to, those films. But one of the challenges we have noticed when we ever go to a cinema, it is quite expensive to go to the cinema to spend your time and money to buy not just the ticket but concessionaries to enjoy yourself whilst watching the film and end up having a movie that doesn't go well. And audiences over time have realized that listen, there are other alternatives. I think it's something what I wasn't mentioned in the article, but there are other alternatives that we cannot take away from the fact that it is contributing to the erosion of movie going habits. And that is the option of having streaming services or streaming platforms. That is not to say that that is the main reason, but one of the contributory factor. Because if I will go to the cinema and watch a film that is subpar and doesn't delight me as the films that I feel is worthy of that amount of money that I'm paying to watch the film, then there's a very strong likelihood that I'll spend that very money in subscribing to a streaming service where I will have a full roster and library of films at my beck and call within that month. And indeed, yes, the cinema going experience is far superior than being at home sitting in front of your small screen or however big your screen may be. That communal spirit of being in the cinema is almost akin to what we find in sporting events, particularly if it's a film that becomes a part of the pop culture lexicon. It is something that you bonds people from different walks of life, and that is something you can never take away from the film industry as a whole, because that is even one of the main means that most studios make their monies to be able to keep on making movies from time to time. So the cinema going habit is something that ought to be kept. But yes, you can't take away from the fact that economic reasons are also a contributory factor from certain parts of the world, like where I come from and others. But also key to it is the fact that a lot of the films at a point in time were not giving us the production value. I mean, it's not even about the production value. The storylines may not be as sometimes let me even break it down further. There are films that when you watch the trailer, it blows your mind. They lift up your expectations so high, and you go into the cinema expecting them to deliver on it, and then when you go, it doesn't, and you get so disappointed, and you feel like, what's the need going to the studio, to the cinema to watch films from this same studio again? You may give up on them, possibly or potentially. And I've had that experience before, but at the end of the day, for us, we are cinephiles, so regardless, we would want to go to the cinema, regardless of which movie, just because perhaps we want to talk about it on such platforms like this. But for the general movie going audience, they wouldn't waste their time if it won't deliver the way they want. And why would they do that if they have another alternative? And yeah, so these are things that are very key to seeing to it that the movie going industry doesn't erode. But unfortunately, it is happening. And perhaps filmmakers, industry stakeholders worldwide need to pay close attention to some of these research and see how best to make movies better, not just for the cinemas, but also for streaming platforms. Even though we would hope that the streaming platforms executives would see the wisdom in releasing some of their films, in the cinemas for a limited theatrical window before finally releasing it fully on their platform. But regardless, this is what the audience are saying and they have spoken. So it's something worth it for all film industry, stakeholders to take a critical look at and see how best we can improve the films we make so that movie goers or cinema goers would indeed feel that their time was worth it, the money they spent was worth it in seeing those films. So this is the question that we can keep on having an ongoing conversation about, and I'll be glad if most of you would state a reason or two why moviegoers prefer staying at home now than going to the cinemas. I'll be very, very happy if I get a number of them. I would actually have an entire episode where we can read out all these questions or answers to this question so that we can talk more about why moviegoers are refusing to go to the cinemas and what I prefer staying at home. So let me know all you think. What do you think about this particular research that have been done by Ernst and Young for the Indian film industry? And leave these in the comment section below. So all too soon, we are done with the main stories for the day. But since I wasn't able to release an episode yesterday, I thought it wise that I would bring the box office receipts for you know this past weekend, and let's see how the movies performed over the weekend. So as usual, starting from the very domestic box office from North America, we now read how the movies are performing. So starting with this 2026 weekend. So starting with, we are just going to talk about the top 10 quickly. Avatar: Fire and Ash may gross $14.5 million and to a total gross of 364,710,340 dollars. And number two, releasing for the first time is 28 years later, The Bone Temple, making $13 million. And number three, upping from number four, is Zootopia 2 with 9.2 million and a total of 390 million, $442,207. Dropping for number three is The Housemaid to number four, making $8.570 million and a total of 107,196,064 and number five, up and from number six, is Marty Supreme, making $5,477,927 and a total domestic of 79,653,221 dollars. And number six, dropping from number two, is Primates, making $5,025,000 and a total of 19,620,712 dollars. And number seven, which is a re-release, is The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, making $3,494,000. And number eight, dropping from number five, is Greenland 2 Migration, making $3,480,000 and a total domestic of $14,236,318. And number nine, dropping from number seven, is Anaconda, making $3,320,000 and total domestic of $59,211,451. And number 10, another re-release again, The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers 2026 release, making 2.4 million at the box office. Maybe let me just add one more. So the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, Search for SquarePants, made $2,385,000 and a total domestic of $67,203,384. So this was a movie that Angel Studios movie David beat, making 75 million. And number 12, we have No Other Choice, and it also made $2,237,000 and it was released quite in a number of cinemas and has maintained their position. So there you have it for the domestic box office. Quickly, let's take a look at the foreign territory, the international territory, and how those movies are performing. So a quick look, we have 28 years later, The Bone Temple making 31,200,000 worldwide. Primates are number two, making 24,220,712 worldwide. Three, Greenland 2 Migration at number three, 17 million and 17 million and 8,115 worldwide. And number four, The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring 2026 re-release has made $3,850,000 worldwide. And number five, we have We Bury the Dead, which made $3,711,365. And number six, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers 2026 re-release has made $2,648,378. And number seven, we have Toby 3. I think it's a German film. Pardon me. I'm not sure I'll be able to mention the title, but it has made $2,636,955 worldwide. Number eight, we have the Lord of the Rings again, The Return of the King 2026 re-release. That is interesting. To making $2,530,000. And number nine, we have Dragost Latara. How come I was able to pronounce this title? Making 2,273 and 273,155 worldwide. And number 10, we have Bloody Heaven, making $2,258,219 worldwide. The reason why you're not seeing David here is because it was released in 2025. Let me quickly bring it up if you want to know. So if you go to 2025, you realize that it's not among the very top. It's not among the very top because it's just made 75 million in the box. Yeah, so that is David for you. So David here, let me highlight it. So just as in the story, I spoke about David. Is almost on the cusp of 80 million. So yeah, that's why it's not on the list of the 2026 box office. But all too soon, we have come to an end of today's episode of the Film Mandate. I trust you enjoyed the discussions we had. Whatever questions you have for any of these stories, kindly drop it in the comment section and I would respond to it. I appreciate your audience already, so I'll respond to it as well. And thanks so much for joining me for this exciting episode of the Film Mandate. I'll come your way another time with exciting stories from across the world, where we talk about movies and things from even the TV side that we love. So thanks for joining me and staying tuned for this episode of the Film Monday. I'll see you soon. My name is Papa Otu, and this is the Film Mandate.